Chosen ones, 5 signs you're entering the darkest phase of spiritual awakening. Have you ever felt like the entire world is shifting beneath your feet, but no one else seems to notice? Like something is calling you from deep within, something ancient and powerful, but at the same time, it's dragging you through a darkness you never expected. If you're watching this, you didn't arrive here by accident. You are not just someone scrolling through meaningless content. You are someone who is awakening. And not just any awakening, you are entering the darkest phase, the soul-forging crucible of spiritual transformation that only the chosen ones must walk through. And I want to tell you, it's going to be the most challenging thing you've ever faced, but also the most necessary. We often think of spiritual awakening as this beautiful, serene process filled with light, peace, and harmony. But that's only what comes after. The beginning, the beginning is brutal. It's raw. It feels like death. Not physical death, but the death of everything you thought you were. Most people don't talk about this part, but I will, because I've been through it. And if you're still watching, chances are you're going through it too.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
This is not a motivational speech. This is a spiritual transmission. And I'm going to give it to you straight. There are 5 signs that indicate you're entering the darkest phase of spiritual awakening. But this isn't just about checking a list. This is about recognizing that you were chosen for this path, not by accident, not by coincidence, but by something far greater, something older than time itself. You were chosen because your soul is ready to remember. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like the life you're living doesn't belong to you? Like there's a version of you hidden beneath layers and layers of programming, expectations, trauma, and illusion. And that sensation, that gnawing discomfort, that's the first sign. You begin to feel like you're living a lie. Everything that once made sense, your job, your relationships, your goals, suddenly feels hollow, fake. You stare at your reflection and ask, who am I really? And you can't answer. That's not depression. That's not confusion. That's the first flicker of awakening. That's your soul whispering, wake up. But here's the catch, awakening is not polite. It's not gentle. It's a violent process of unbecoming everything that isn't you. And when that process begins, the universe doesn't whisper, it roars. Suddenly you find yourself losing things, people disappear, your sense of identity crumbles. You may even feel like you're losing your mind. That's the second sign. Your world begins to fall apart. Not because you did anything wrong, but because everything built on illusion cannot survive the truth. You've begun to see through the veil, and the veil does not like to be seen through. In this phase, many people give up. They numb themselves. They run back to the comfort of sleep. But you're still here. That means something. That means you're meant to go deeper, and deeper you shall go. Because the third sign is the most terrifying and the most sacred, you begin to feel utterly alone. Not just lonely, alone in a way that no words can describe. Like you're standing in a void, screaming, and no one can hear you. Even the people closest to you can't understand what you're going through. They try to help, but their words feel empty. And in that pain you start to realize no one can save you. No teacher, no guru, not even this video. You must walk through this darkness alone. But here's the paradox: only in that sacred solitude do you begin to feel the presence of something greater. Call it God, call it Source, call it the universe. It doesn't matter. What matters is that in your deepest despair, you begin to feel again. Not happiness, not joy, but truth. And truth is the fourth sign you begin to see through everything. The lies of society, the masks people wear, the manipulation in media, the illusion of control. Everything becomes transparent. And yes, it's overwhelming, because once you see, you can never unsee. But this is also your gift, because while the world is asleep, you are awake. Let me pause here and ask you a question you may not be ready for. What if your suffering has a purpose? What if the darkness isn't punishment, but preparation? What if the pain you're feeling is not breaking you, but birthing you? This brings us to the fifth sign, and perhaps the most mystical of them all. You begin to feel a calling. It's not loud, it doesn't scream, it whispers. It tugs at your soul in the quietest moments, when you stare at the stars, when you're lying awake at 3 a.m., when you hear a song that touches something ancient inside you. You feel it. A sense that you are here for something more, that you have a mission. But the mission isn't clear yet. And that's okay, because the mission reveals itself only to those who endure the darkness. And now let me tell you something that might sound crazy, but it's the truth. The darker it gets, the closer you are to the light. The pain you feel is not a sign that you're lost. It's a sign that you're on the edge of transformation. You are shedding your false self, and what remains, what is born from that destruction, is your true essence. I know it hurts. I know sometimes you want to give up. But if you could see what I see, if you could see the light that's waiting for you on the other side of this, you would never doubt again. You are not broken. You are breaking open. So breathe, just breathe. Because the darkest phase of spiritual awakening is also the most sacred. It's where you become the phoenix. It's where your soul remembers who it truly is. Let me ask you again, what if you were chosen for this? Not because you're better, but because your soul is ancient. Because you agreed, long before you were born, to awaken now, in this lifetime, during this era of chaos. You chose this, and now it's time to remember. Your old life is dying. Let it die. Mourn it, but don't cling to it, because something greater is being born. And though it may not feel like it now, you are on the path of the chosen. And this darkness, this terrifying, beautiful, sacred darkness, is your initiation. Breathe. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are awakening. The veil between realities begins to tear when the outer world no longer makes sense. Have you ever walked through a familiar place and suddenly felt like you were seeing it for the first time? The streets look the same, the people are going about their lives, laughing, working, eating, but something feels off. It's like you're watching a movie, but you're no longer a character in it. You've become the observer, detached, aware, almost as if you're floating just behind your own body. It's disorienting, strange, and yet, deep down, you know it means something profound is happening. This is not disassociation. This is not madness. This is the tearing of the veil. When you begin to awaken, the subtle layers of illusion start to crumble. The stories you were told about who you should be, what life is, what success means, they no longer grip you the way they used to. It's like waking up from a dream and realizing the entire world has been asleep. You walk through crowds and feel invisible. Not because you're not seen, but because you're no longer playing the game. You're no longer hypnotized by the script. This is one of the first major tests of the darkest phase of awakening, navigating a world that no longer aligns with your inner reality. Everything feels upside down. The news feels like noise. Conversations feel shallow. Even the goals you once cherished, money, fame, validation, they lose their flavor. You start to crave something different, something raw, real, eternal. But you don't yet know what that is. This liminal space is where many give up. They try to go back. They try to force themselves to be normal again. But once you see through the illusion, there is no going back. And yet, this is precisely where the greatest transformation begins. Because when the outer world no longer makes sense, it forces you to turn inward. And that's when you begin to uncover the real battlefield, your own mind. That you begin to witness the war between the ego and the soul. The ego screams, "You're losing control. You're falling apart. You're going to end up alone, broke, crazy." And the soul gently whispers, "Keep going. You're shedding the lie. You are almost free." This internal conflict is not a flaw. It's the forge. It's where the fire of awakening burns hottest. You will question everything. You will cry without knowing why. You'll wake up in the middle of the night with your heart pounding, feeling like something is coming but you don't know what. This is the sacred unraveling. You are not broken. You are being broken open. And when the veil tears, your senses become heightened. You begin to feel energy in spaces. You sense people's emotions before they speak. Nature feels alive in a way it never did before. Time becomes fluid. A minute can feel like an hour. A conversation can feel like a transmission. Reality bends. And this is where the fear creeps in. Because you realize that everything you thought was solid is not. Everything you believed was true is just a story. And now you're floating in the unknown. But listen closely, this is where the magic begins. Because in the unknown you begin to experience your true self. The one not bound by identity or labels. The one that existed before trauma, before conditioning, before fear. You begin to remember that you are more than a body. You are consciousness, eternal, limitless. And from that space, a deep, unshakable truth begins to emerge. Nothing outside of you can define you anymore. Ask yourself this: who are you when there's nothing left to prove? Nothing left to chase? Nothing left to become? This question is the key. It unlocks the next level of awakening. But to answer it, you must first be willing to let go of everything you are not. That's why the darkest phase is also the most sacred, because it strips you down to your essence. So if you're walking through this strange, surreal, often terrifying phase, know this: you are not losing your mind. You are finding your soul. The outer world is cracking because your inner world is being reborn. You are not dying. You are awakening. When the mirror shatters, losing your old self to discover the infinite. There comes a moment in every sacred awakening where the mirror shatters, and when it does, all that you thought you were, all the identities you once wore like armor, could fall into pieces. It's not just disorienting, it's annihilating. You look at your reflection and realize you don't recognize the face anymore. And it's not just physical, it's existential. You don't know what you believe in, who you are, what your purpose is, or even why you're still here. But let me tell you something few will dare to say. That moment when you feel the most lost is the moment you are finally free to become. When the mirror shatters, it is not a failure. It is a sacred liberation, because what breaks is not your soul, it's the false self, and the roles you played to survive, the masks you wore to be loved, the lies you believed to feel safe. And as all of it crumbles, what's left is something raw and terrifying and holy. It's you, the real you. Not the version society crafted, not the one you perform to fit in, but the ancient, eternal spark that has lived through thousands of lifetimes, waiting for this very moment to rise. And yes, it hurts. Deeply. There is no gentle way to tear through illusion. It feels like betrayal, because pieces of you are dying. You grieve not only what you lost, but who you used to be. Friendships dissolve. Careers collapse. Even your own thoughts turn against you. You feel like you're walking through the ruins of your life with nothing but your breath to guide you. But in those ruins, you will find something astonishing: stillness. And from that stillness, something begins to emerge: presence. The awareness that you are not your thoughts. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are something far more vast. You are the witness, the observer, the consciousness behind the mask. And when you taste this presence, even for a moment, you begin to understand the real reason why the darkness came. Not to punish you, not to destroy you, but to strip away everything that is not you. Because only in the absence of illusion can truth be born. And real truth is always simple, always silent, always felt, never forced. But here's what no one tells you. Once the old self dies, the new one doesn't appear immediately. There is an in-between space, a void, a great silence. This is where most people panic. They think they've failed. They try to rebuild the old identity just to feel something again. But this is the most sacred space of all. It's the womb of the soul. You are being reformed, rewired, realigned. And it's happening beneath the surface of your awareness. So trust the silence. Trust the stillness. Something ancient is awakening inside you. Have you ever wondered why the greatest spiritual teachers all speak of surrender? It's because beyond all the noise, beyond all the chaos, beyond even your own mind, there is a presence that knows. And it doesn't need to understand. It doesn't need to fix. It simply is. And when you rest in that presence, you are no longer afraid of losing yourself, because you realize you were never the self you thought you were. Let me ask you the question that changes everything. What if your breakdown was always the breakthrough in disguise? What if your falling apart is actually your soul finally expanding beyond the prison it was born into? When the mirror shatters, it's not the end. It's the beginning of the real journey, the journey inward, the journey home. And though it may feel like you are walking through fire, remember the phoenix must burn before it can fly. And you, my friend, are the phoenix. the sacred fire, why your pain is the portal to divine power. There's a moment, deep in the darkest night of the soul, when everything goes silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind that feels like the universe has turned its back on you. You cry out for help, but there's no response. You beg for clarity, but none comes. The people around you don't understand. Even your own thoughts betray you. And so, you fall into what feels like nothingness. But in that fall, something miraculous begins to happen. You stop resisting. You stop trying to fix. You stop trying to be anything at all. You surrender, and in that surrender, you catch fire. Not a fire that burns the body, a fire that burns the illusion, a fire that reveals what was always underneath the indestructible, eternal truth of who you really are. That's what the pain was for. That's what the loneliness was preparing you for. It was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to purify you. Most people run from pain. They numb it, bury it, distract from it. But the chosen ones, we walk into it. We sit with it. We listen to it. Because we know pain is not the enemy. Pain is the teacher. Your suffering is the sacred fire that forges your soul into something unshakable. You were never meant to avoid it. You were meant to transform through it. And when you stop fighting it, when you stop resisting the very thing that's trying to awaken you, something shifts. You begin to realize that your greatest wounds are actually doors, portals, and behind those doors lies your divine power. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real people. People who have faced the darkness and still chose to love. People who have been shattered and still chose to rise. That's why you were chosen. Not to be flawless, but to be fearless. And to walk through the fire not as a victim, but as a vessel. Because only those who have faced the void can guide others through it. And maybe that's your mission. Maybe the reason you're going through all of this is not just for you. Maybe it's because someone somewhere in the future is going to need your story to survive. Maybe your scars are not shameful, they're sacred maps. Proof that you made it through. Proof that the fire didn't consume you, it revealed you. So, the next time the pain comes, don't run. Don't numb. Don't shrink. Sit with it. Feel it fully. Let it burn away everything that is not love. Let it strip you bare until only truth remains. Because that truth, that light, that divine power, that's you. That's who you've always been underneath the noise. Let me ask you one final question. What if your life is not falling apart, but falling into place? What if the universe is not abandoning you, but initiating you? What if this pain, this darkness, this sacred fire is the exact thing your soul asked for to remember its strength, its purpose, its divinity? You were never meant to stay asleep. You were never meant to stay small. You were meant to awaken, and you are. You are not broken. You are breaking through. You are not lost. You are being redirected. You are not in darkness. You are the light, remembering itself. This is the path of the chosen, and this right now is your moment. Welcome to the fire. Welcome home.